All rabbinic texts were originally produced through a process of oral transmission and compilation. The ideas of the rabbis circulated independently before being selected and embedded in texts that were transmitted orally and eventually written down. It is not surprising then that rabbinic ideas, statements, and even whole passages exist in parallel in more than one work of literature. This parallelism helps to confirm the historical reliability of rabbinic ideas. It also creates promising possibilities for comparative analysis. It may be somewhat surprising to discover that many examples of parallelism reflect the kind of copying of earlier text into later text that we might assume to be a feature only of written texts. The comparison of parallel versions of a text often helps scholars put together a historical chronology for how the ideas of oral texts come together. Stories are frequently found in parallel. Few stories, though, are found in as many places as the story of Shimon ben Shetach, Judah ben Tabai, and the false witness. This story appears in 4 versions, Mechilta, Tosefta, and both Talmuds. By comparing the versions, we can discover 3 important historical moments: the moment of original composition, the first edit, and the second edit. The earliest version is found in the Mechilta. The first edit is reflected in the version shared by Tosefta and the Palestinian Talmud. The second edit is the version of the Babylonian Talmud. The earliest version of the story is found in the Tanaitic Midrash Mechilta on the book of Exodus. In that version, Shimon ben Shetach kills a single false witness, and Judah ben Tabai takes an oath declaring that this killing was the spilling of innocent blood because the Torah requires that there be 2 witnesses. The simplest understanding of the story is that Shimon ben Shetach erred because the witness who testified was a single witness. Another possible understanding of this earliest version of the story might note that Shimon ben Shetach's error is in keeping with the language of the biblical verse in Deuteronomy 19, which talks about the false witness as a single witness, and that it may reflect an early understanding of the verse and the practice it implicates. The second version of the story is a version found in Tosefta in which Judah ben Tabai uses oath-like language to boast that he has killed a single false witness in order to undermine the sectarian view of the Sadducees, who asserted that a witness would only be executed if the defendant was executed. Hearing this statement, Shimon ben Shetach uses oath-like language to tell Judah ben Tabai that Judah had spilled innocent blood, because the Torah requires that there be 2 witnesses. The story ends with a declaration that at that moment Judah ben Tabai declared that he would only teach the law as explained by Shimon ben Shetach. The first edit reverses the roles of the 2 rabbis and creates a justification for the killing within sectarian polemics. Judah ben Tabai was quick to execute because he needed to prove a point with the Sadducees. The additional ending, that Judah ben Tabai's legal confidence was shattered by his guilt, is the text's way of communicating Judah ben Tabai's sincere realization of error and total remorse. This would preclude a reading that assumed that Judah might disagree with Shimon ben Shetach and maintain his position as a reading of Deuteronomy 19. The version of the story found in Tosefta and the Palestinian Talmud is then expanded upon in the second edit of the Babylonian Talmud, which adds a new ending. All the days of Judah ben Tabai's life, he would spread himself on the grave of the executed dead witness, and a voice would be heard. People who heard it thought it was the dead man's voice, but Judah insisted, "It is my voice." He told the people he would prove it to them, since upon Judah's death there would be no voice. So the Babylonian Talmud's second edit magnifies Judah ben Tabai's regret. Not only does it affect his legal confidence, it manifests as a deep sense of remorse towards the dead person and an impossible attempt to gain forgiveness for his unatonable mistake. While the story ends there, the Talmud cites a concluding note to the story. Rav Acha, son of Rava, a Babylonian rabbi from the late 4th century, is not convinced by Judah's proof that it was his voice and not the dead person's. It is possible, Rav Acha says, that the voice was that of the dead witness, but that he stopped speaking because he received justice in the afterlife, or because Judah appeased him in the afterlife. Traditional readers of rabbinic literature have read stories for inspiration or as folklore. When modern Jewish historiography became robust in the 19th century, historians used these stories to represent Jewish life during the rabbinic period. Since the 1970s, though, critical scholars have recognized great challenges in using these stories to write history. The parallel versions of the present story provide a great cautionary tale. Since comparison makes it clear that the story was embellished over time, one would be hard-pressed to accept all but the earliest and most minimal version of the story as history. Beyond the introduction of new facts and scenes, the freedom with which the editors embellish the stories communicates something to us about even the original version of the story, that artfulness plays a role in the production. For the past couple of decades, scholars have been shifting the lenses which they employ from those of historians to those of literary critics. That process has proved very productive, as scholars have mined rabbinic stories for literary rather than historical lessons. The Talmud's final edition, Rav Acha's rejection of Judah's voice, has an uncanny quality insofar as Rav Acha is rejecting Judah's logical argumentation for an arena of ghostly afterlife. A literary critic might argue that Rav Acha shares with the people a strong investment in the ghostly afterlife of the victim that almost perversely does not allow Judah to rest. Rav Acha's commentary makes the voice from the cemetery something like the telltale heart of Edgar Allan Poe's famous short story. And one of the consequences of uncanny features like the telltale heart is that they are not easily explained or resolved, which makes the reader uncomfortable. What seems to be happening as the story evolves within the rabbinic period is that successive readers struggle with what is fundamentally most problematic about the story, that this scholastic hypothetical masked the death of a real person, cloaking it in scholarly language. The first edit thought it could mitigate this problem by making the death meaningful. It was part of a sectarian polemic and it caused a crisis of confidence. The second edit wanted to bring the guilt to light by embodying a prostrate Judah in the cemetery. But that edit is also not satisfying. Like the beating telltale heart, the dead witness persists and will not let Judah rest. Even when Judah dies, and it is only his logic that needs to rest, Rav Acha will not let it rest. The ghost of the dead witness survives long after everything else in the story.